Nobody talks about the whole Me Too movement. Like, when is it going to hit prison? And when are we going to start talking about suicide attempt survivors in prison? When are we going to talk about those women who are slicing their wrists or buying medication from other people to kill themselves? Like, when are we going to talk about that? Or the people who are diabetic and know they don't deserve to be in prison and they're not getting proper treatment, so they just gorge themselves on things that they're not supposed to eat because they know it'll kill them. And I watched women die like that. That was not accidental, right? But nobody is talking about, like, when we talk about suicide survivors, or the people who are the relatives or friends of people who have died by suicide in prison. Nobody talks about that. And what are we doing to make it a safe place to come back home to educate people, to demand that? It's the same way I feel about trauma and treatment for that, and building a trauma-informed justice system. You know, like, everybody expects great things from me, but nobody knows what it's like when the sun rises and I'm like, I don't want to face this day. And the night comes and it's like, I'm terrified of sleep. There's this thing in the women's prisons that says, I am my sister's keeper. And you're supposed to pay attention. Like, they don't sit down and talk to you like what suicide is, and they have this formulary, right, of what the signs are of suicide, right? And it's a joke, right? Because I wouldn't give any of my shit away if I was doing it. I would just do it. You know, they have this idea, whereas I think building, because prisons are built for and by and run by men, the same dynamics you see in our society that keep women apart, they perpetuate those in prisons, so that women are telling on each other. They don't know how to bond together. It's like that, like in a workplace, you know, there's only so many people at the top. The same thing happens in the prisons, but it's more dire, right? Because you really are at bottom, right? And instead of teaching women that we're all we got, like, that's what I teach in my class, you know, you're all wearing the same colors here. I was in those colors, and one of the worst things is not being able to work together. You know, you stand with each other. That's what the men do in prison. They stand with each other, right? They don't go tell on each other that somebody's trying to write somebody up. But if they could just build more community and do more activities to let the women see they're more alike than different, then I think you'd have less people abusing drugs, diabetics basically deciding I'm going to kill myself by eating 20 honey buns, and this isn't a made-up story, and drinking a case of Coke. I think that they don't do suicide awareness at all. Especially the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they are very reluctant to bring outside people in because they're always afraid someone's going to tell what they're doing. But I feel the same way about that as I feel about telling women that if someone is doing something to you that you don't want them to do sexually, it's not non-consensual, it's rape. If you are feeling like every morning when you wake up, if it gets too bad I can kill myself, there's something going on, and there needs to be a safe space. And that's one of the hardest things, because you're in a situation where people gossip and people shame, and taking that shame culture out of mental illness. I mean, so much shame around it that people don't get the help they need, or you get so beaten down, you know? It's like diabetics are supposed to have these special shoes. You shouldn't have to go and argue over and over and over to get the right shoes that they're supposed to supply for you. You shouldn't have to argue to get basic things to make you feel like a person. It leads to deep depression. And when you look at the statistics of women, I'm just grouping it all together, all types of violence. Well, 3 types of violence that we look at. We look at sexual assault, intimate partner violence, and caregiver violence, which would be violence usually in childhood. When you add that all up, over 85% of women have experienced that on some level that are incarcerated. So we are locking up women who are extremely traumatized, and no one is, they give you these little questionnaires when you first come in. No one's going to say, yeah, I'm suicidal, because where are they going to take you? They're going to put you in a turtle suit and put you in a cold room. And I just think that there needs to be just more ongoing dialogues. They find time to bring you together for all kinds of things. Why aren't they bringing women together and having different people come in and talk about it? You know, it's not like if you hear a story, and women do really well when they see outsiders coming in. They really want to make a connection and talk to you. And I just think that there needs to be more proactive, they need to be more proactive and really look at what we can do to make this different. I mean, because I do believe that it is a lot of trauma, and trauma-induced mental illness is what I call it, whatever they want to give the labels to it. I know where I saw it coming from. So I think that if there was just a concentrated effort on, like, we know women have got trauma, we have resident drug abuse programs, why don't we have a trauma survivors residential program and have a trauma-informed prison with a trauma-informed approach? Like, what would that look like? And it's not hard to do. I think that we could incorporate in that, you know, like they have AA, NA, GA, people coming from the outside to do that. Why can't we have people come from the outside and talk about suicide and suicide prevention? I think that that's really important. And coming home, where I was working before, 3 of our clients died after they got out, and I'm not so sure it wasn't suicide. And then there's a chain, there are groups from the different prisons, and it's really sad to log in every few months and see that, and it's usually the older women who did a lot of time who have died, and we're pretty sure it's by suicide. So it's not just education in, it's like, what supports do you have when you get home? What supports are there?
I am redeemed.